Hey everybody, Jeff Williams here with AskJeffWilliams.com. Okay, today we're going to talk about oil changes. Now I know most of you guys out there are thinking, oh my god, oil changes? How much easier could it get, right? Well, let me tell you, there's a lot of things out there that you're not aware of, and I'm going to go over them real quick. And there's some people out there that have never changed their oil before in their life, and they'd like to know exactly how it's done. So we're going to change the oil on a vehicle today. But first we're going to talk about oil. Now, I get some people in the shop saying, Jeff, I went down the street and a guy said that my car took special oil. Well, I can assure you, unless it's a diesel, there's no special oil out there. None. Okay, and of course diesel is a whole nother subject and we're not going to talk about that today. So if it's a gasoline engine, no such thing as special oil. They do make two types of oils though. They make conventional, and they make synthetic. And of course there's a Durablend, which is a half and half of these two. Now, big question I get is, Jeff, if I go with conventional, with one oil change, can I switch to synthetic on the next oil change? Because some people are afraid that if you switch the two, you'll destroy the engine. Well, I can assure you that ain't going to happen. And the answer to that is yes, you can switch anytime you want. If you get an oil change with conventional one time, you can switch to synthetic the next time. Now, I don't recommend going back and forth all the time, and I don't recommend putting synthetic in older cars because obviously this is an expensive oil. And if you stay on top of your oil changes, which is 3,000 miles or 3 months, then you shouldn't have to worry about synthetic. But some people like synthetic because it's got extended coverage, up to 5,000 miles on some of these. And they really want that extra protection on the newer cars. Now, if you got an older car, I don't recommend putting synthetic in because, believe it or not, it actually makes the engines leak. It's a phenomenon. I'm not going to get into the reasons why, but it'll actually leak out of the older engines. When I say older, I'm talking like 10 years old, and so on and so forth. So these are the two types of oils that I really like, Valvoline and Mobil 1. And of course they make two different types of filters, believe it or not. Actually they make several types, but they make the usual can type, which is this one right here. And on the car we're going to be working on today, they make this cartridge type. It's just a paper element. It's got plastic on both sides, got a little rubber seal there, and it slides in. I'm going to show you how to put that in there. So those are basically two types of filters that you got out there. And it's really important to know what you're working with because this one takes a special wrench to get them out. And of course this one, you can either use your hands, see they got that grip on the outside, or they make these little handy dandy wrenches that go on the outside, they lock on, and then you just put a wrench on the end of that and voila, you crank that thing right off. And if you don't have one of those, you can use one of these. It goes on the outside, really easy, and then you can just crank down on that thing and take it off. So I'm going to show you how to change your oil real quick and we can take care of business. Let's go. Okay, first thing you're going to want to do is you want to get that vehicle up in the air because you can't change your oil if the car is sitting on the ground, right? So for most of you out there, I'm going to assume that you're just going to be using a floor jack. I'd recommend that you have some jack stands like these. Now 2 would be good, 4 would be even better. Now if you're going to use 2, don't forget you're going to have to put some kind of a wheel chock in the back so the car doesn't roll down the street while you got it up in the air, because that's the worst thing that can happen. So make sure you use jack stands. Trust me, I've seen a lot of people use just a floor jack and something happens and that person gets crushed. So anyway, luckily for us, we don't need to worry about that. Why? Because we're using a scissor lift today. It's made by Benpack. It's got a 4-foot reach on it, and luckily for us, it goes up high enough we don't have to worry about that. So, get your vehicle up in the air. Once you get it up in the air, you get up underneath it. Now, all cars have a drain plug on them, all of them. You have to find it. All you got to do is find the oil pan. And on the back of it somewhere, you're going to see this little teeny bolt sticking out the back. Now, on this one, this is a 2006 Chevy Cobalt SS with a 2.2 Ecotec engine in it. So, this particular one uses a 15mm socket. So what you're going to do is you get that 15mm socket, make sure your ratchet's on loosen. Remember, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. I know it sounds stupid, but trust me, I've seen a lot of mechanics, myself included, accidentally tighten when you should be loosening. Next, you're going to need a suitable container to put all that oil in. A tub or jug. Don't let it run onto the ground because that's a big no-no in the EPA eyes. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this guy right here to catch all of our oil. So, loosen up your drain bolt. Remember, it's going to be hot if you just shut that engine off. And you want that oil warm too, because when it's cold, it all doesn't come out. You're going to loosen that plug up, and voila! And you're going to let it drain for just a minute or two. Okay, we got the drain plug out and we're draining the oil. Now, very important, here's your drain plug. What I want you to do is when you pull this little guy out of there, I want you to inspect the threads. Make sure they're not stripped or cross-threaded. Very important. Also, some of them have magnets on the very end of them. That's very important too. Check to see if you got any metal filings or anything of that nature on the end. If you do, just clean it off with your finger. It's basically telling you what's going on inside the engine. And of course, you don't want to have a cross-threaded drain plug because you can't put it back in and you got problems. And I'm not going to tell you how to fix that. Okay, so if you notice there's this white tape on the end, what we like to do is we use Teflon. And we'll take a strip of Teflon and we'll coat it around the threads, and it acts as an extra sealer. And yes, I know some drain plugs have that rubber seal right there, but just as an extra added insurance, we'll put a little band of Teflon on there and help seal it up. So and we'll clean it all up, make it nice and pretty, and get ready to put it back in. Now, this particular car has the cartridge type filter in it, but if you happen to have the canister type of oil filter, before you put that oil filter on, and even before you take the old one off, what I recommend doing is you open up your 5 quart of oil, or however many you got, and then what you're going to do is you're going to get your finger all nice and oily. I know if you don't like oil, this isn't for you. And then what you're going to do is there's this big rubber seal on these canisters. They all have a rubber seal on them. So what you're going to do is you're going to saturate your finger with that, and you're going to put a nice healthy coating of oil on that. Now don't be shy with that oil, okay? You can get all sloppy if you want. More the better, I say. So you're going to put a bunch of oil over that seal. Just like that. Okay. And that's very important because that will help this rubber seal itself up against the mating surface on that engine. And now that we're talking about that, let's go put our drain plug back in. So let's go. Okay, so we got our drain plug all cleaned up. We got a nice layer of Teflon on there. So what we're going to do is, he's all finished draining out. Wipe him off, get him all nice and clean on that mating surface. Now you want to put your, thread him by hand. Don't use an air gun. I've seen guys cross thread that before. You're just going to hand tighten him up. Put him on tighten. Remember, righty tighty, lefty loosey. And you're going to snugly wrench down on that. Remember, this is aluminum. Most cars are made with aluminum today. You crank on that thing too hard, I guarantee you're going to strip it out, and oh my gosh, that's a whole nother episode. So, now, this particular car, like I said, is an 06 Ecotec 2.2, and they use the cartridge type. Now, if this vehicle was using the canister oil filters, this would be the step where I'd say, okay, now while you're under the car, look around on the bottom. Somewhere on the bottom, you're going to see an oil filter sticking out the side of the engine somewhere. You got to find it. And what you're going to do is you're going to, if this was a Saturn, it would be on the back here. You're going to reach up and you're going to unthread it with your hand. It's very important to change that oil filter the same time you change the oil. I know a lot of guys out there are going to argue with me on that, but that is exactly how I do it. And that's the way I'm always going to do it. So, you unthread it. Now remember, a lot of oil is going to come out, so watch your face. You're going to unthread them, and voila, the filter is going to come out right in your hand. Now remember, it's going to be hot, so you might want to let it drop down inside of here or wherever it is you're draining your oil in. So you're going to take the old one out, take a clean rag, and you're going to wipe that mating surface off where that filter came off. You want to make sure there's no dirt, no oil, no nothing around it. Wipe it all off, make it nice and clean, nice and pretty. Then you're going to take your new filter, which has got that bead of oil all the way around it, remember? And you're going to ever so gently put it up there and thread him on. And make sure he threads on right. And you're going to thread down on that and make it nice and firm. You're not going to crank on it with a wrench. Never use one of these to tighten one of these. You can use one of these to take it off, but don't ever use one of these to crank it on. Use your hand, that's it. Because if you crank too hard, you're going to crush that little rubber seal, oil's going to squirt out the side, and you're going to kill your engine. So remember that. Never use a wrench to put one of these on. Just use your hand. Okay? Okay, so now we've gone ahead and dropped the vehicle, and at this point in the game you should lower your vehicle too. Take your jack stands out if you're using jack stands. All right, now remember I told you this was a 2006 with a 2.2 Ecotech in it. It's a Chevy Cobalt. On these particular engines, they use this type of an oil filter. I don't know if you've ever seen one of these. It's a cartridge type. All right, now come here, take a look at this. On these 2.2s, 2.0, 2.2, and 2.4, if you look down in here, usually there's a plastic cowling that goes over here. We've already removed it. You'll take that off. You can see where it sits on here. Here's the dipstick for the oil. And right here, you'll see this black thing. It looks like a little plastic cap with a huge plastic nut on the end of it. You're gonna have to get these special types of sockets that go with it. This is the kind that we use right here. I don't know if you can see that. And that's a 32 millimeter, that's standard. And you can't use a regular socket because the intake manifold is gonna block you. And you can see this little tiny groove here that the manufacturer put in there so that you can get something in there like an extension. So you'll get your special socket there. See how that low profile socket? And you're gonna stick him on the end of that like that. And you're gonna put a ratchet on the end and you're gonna loosen him up like that. And you'll be able to take this whole thing out. And if you look, you can see where that cartridge is actually stuck on the end of that cap. See that? So, and there's plastic clips that hold this thing in. All you're gonna do, I know it's messy, you're just gonna pull him off. See those little tangs on the end there? And it just locks it into the end of that cap. So then you're gonna take him off, and then what you're gonna do is you're going to get a clean rag, clean the top off of that. You're gonna clean the threads off of this guy, and if you notice there's a little orange, it could be a different color, but there's a little rubber seal here. Take a look at this. Now when you get this box, you're gonna get this brand new seal. You see that? It comes with the cartridge. Okay, so come here, I'm gonna show you how to do this. Now you got this rubber seal on here, see that? You're gonna need a small pick or some kind of small object to get him out. See that? How he comes off of there? Gently take him off of there. Remember, that's plastic now. You don't want to scar him up. See that new seal? What you're gonna do is you're gonna take him out of there, take a clean rag, clean that groove out. Make sure there's no dirt in there. You don't want no dirt in there. You're gonna take your new seal, you're gonna gently roll him over the threads like such. See that? Beautiful. Now, same thing. What you're gonna wanna do, get a little bit of oil on your finger, go over that seal. You don't have to get a lot on there. Now the reason why is when you go to crank down on this thing, and sometimes when they're dry, they'll actually hang up on that metal, on the aluminum, and they'll tear. So I always recommend to put a little oil on the end of that, get it all nice and lubricated. Then, what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your cartridge filter, yeah I know, I couldn't find it. Take your cartridge filter, see the little tangs on the end? See the cap? Make sure that that little rubber seal is facing away. And besides, it would never fit this way anyway. See that? You're gonna push down until you hear it lock. See that? Ta-da! Ain't that a beaut? And then it's just the opposite. Everything is reversed now. You're gonna come over here. You're gonna pull that huge cable bundle back. Slide him down in there. And gently thread him in by hand until you get up to that rubber seal, and then you can crank down on it with this. Now remember I said never use a wrench to crank down on a filter. Well, this isn't the filter, this is the filter cap, and the only exception is on these engines that have the cartridge type filter. And you just crank down on it like such. Okay, so now we're ready for the oil. But before we do that, you got to figure out where it goes, right? Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to scan the top of your engine. Somewhere on the top of that engine, there's going to be a little round cap. And it's going to have, most of them, have an emblem of an old oil can right here. I don't know if you can see that. Get that up there close for you. See that? That's an emblem of an old oil can. And then down here it has SAE, Society of Automotive Engineers, and then the weight of the oil, and then that's a little emblem saying read the book before you do anything. That's what all that stuff means on the end of that cap. So you're going to find a cap that has that emblem. That's where the oil goes. You have to figure that out first. Now, what's this saying is when this car was brand new, it took 5W30. Of course, this car isn't new anymore, so you can put a thicker oil in it, and that's going to be left up to your discretion on how thick of an oil you want to use. But here in the shop, If the car's more than 5 years old, in the summertime we like to use 1040, and in the wintertime we use a 1030. So we're going into wintertime now, so we're going to use a 1030. So we pulled the cap off, and of course this is where the oil goes. You're going to want a good funnel, because I have not seen a guy yet who can pour directly in there. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of you out there that can, but I can't. You're going to take your oil and make sure it's clean, because I've seen some guys dump used oil in here and then dump it back into another car, by accident, of course. And we're going to dump this in. Now, the way that this works is you're going to put in about 3 quarts. Now, most 4-cylinder engines hold 4 quarts. There's a few imports out there that hold 3.5 and so on and so forth. You're going to put in roughly at least 3 quarts. And then what you're going to do is you're going to pull the dipstick out, wipe it off, get all that residual oil off of there, and you're going to stick it back in the hole, pull it out. If you're up on the mark here, each oil stick has marks on it. And here you can see on this particular Ecotech, it's got these little series of raised bumps here. And there's a maximum and there's a minimum, and you want to be somewhere in this area right here. Remember, too much oil is just as bad as not enough oil. So when you're first filling it up, you want to get it up into this area, and then I'll show you what to do next. So, went ahead and put 4 quarts in. How do we know that? Because if you turn this thing on its side, this 5-quart container, you'll see that there's this little window here on the side. The right or left-hand side is for liters, right-hand side is for quarts. So when you put it on a level ground, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4. We put 4 quarts in. Okay, so we know it shouldn't take much more than 4 quarts. So we put 4 quarts in. I got the cap back on. I'm going to pull a dipstick out. I'm going to wipe it off again. Make sure I got an accurate reading on this. Put it in. Pull it out. Now I'm going to look at both sides. You're going to rotate that stick on both sides, because sometimes you're going to get some residual oil on one side. It makes it look like you got more oil than you do. So you flip that stick over on the back and you see if the line is consistent from the front to the back of the stick. Now we're in the safety zone here, which is about 3/4 on this stick. Now I'm pretty sure this engine takes more oil than 4 quarts because I already looked at the specs. But, so what we're going to do to get an accurate reading is we're going to put that dipstick back in, make sure the oil filler cap is on tight, and then we're going to start the engine only when it's in that safety zone. And we're going to let it run for about 10 seconds. Okay, so ran the engine for about 10 seconds. You don't need it more than that. Just enough to saturate that filter. Okay, so you're going to come back over, get your rag out, pull your stick out, wipe them off again. That way you get an accurate reading. I know, you're going to go through a lot of these red rags. You're going to put him back in there, into the hole. Give it a second, pull it out. Now take a look at that. See where that level is dropped all the way down to the bottom? And that's why you turn that stick around and around, make sure you get an accurate reading all the way around. See, he's dropped all the way down. Now the reason why that is because that oil filter holds about 1/2 quart of oil. Some are bigger, of course they're going to hold more. So what you're going to do is you're going to top him off, as they call it, and you're going to get him into that safety zone. I like to get him right to the top. Now remember, don't overfill. Too much oil is as bad as not enough, because if you get too much oil in that engine, crankshaft's going to slap against it. It's going to create bubbles and foam, aerate that oil, and guess what? Air doesn't lubricate like oil. So, went ahead and put a little bit more oil in there. Take a look at this. This is what I'm talking about. Okay, we're going to go ahead and wipe our stick off again. Make sure we get a nice accurate reading. Plop him back down in the hole. Give it a second. Pull him out. Take a look at that. There's our line right there. We're right at the top. Now remember I told you about residual oil in the tube getting on the stick and giving you a false reading? Some people might think you got that much oil. Well, you flip it around and you see that the actual line is down there, if you can see that. Okay, so we're right here. We're close to the top. Remember, this is your safety margin right in between here. And each individual manufacturer is going to have different sticks. This one has a groove in it. Some of them have a cross hatch in it. Some of them just have dots drilled in them, or holes. Anyway, you want to be within that safety margin. You don't want too much, but you don't want too little. Somewhere in the middle. And I like to put mine right towards the top. So, Okay, now, gone ahead and got the oil all the way up to capacity. Make sure you put your filler cap back on, because if you don't, guess what? You're going to have a big old mess. All right, now last thing I'm going to do is show you how to reset your oil light. Okay. Now, the way this works is simple. You got import and you got domestic. Now, most of your domestic vehicles, the way you reset the oil light, take the ignition key, turn it forward, don't start the car, hit the gas pedal 3 times. 1, 2, 3, hold, and you'll see your oil light go off. If it doesn't do it the first time, try it again. Don't start the car, just have the key forward, you'll see all the lights come on the dash, hit that gas pedal 3 times and hold. Okay, now if this was a Toyota, what I would tell you to do is, if you look up here on the dash, you'll have your odometer, and you'll have your little odometer reset knob. And what you're going to do is, if you push it, you'll see trip A and B. What you want to do is you want to go to the odometer reading, not the trip A or trip B. And what you want to do is you take your left thumb, push in on that when it's on the odometer, not the trip A or trip B. Push in on it, hold on it, put the key in, turn it forward and hold. Give it about 5 seconds. You'll see it flash on and off. Then you'll see 3 dots, 2 dots, 1 dot. Boom, it's reset. Now, there's all other different types of procedures out there to do this. And I've only covered 2. But if you have any questions, call the manufacturer or the dealer. I'm sure they'll tell you exactly what it is. So anyway, I hope this has answered some questions about how to change your own oil. If you like the video, please subscribe to it. And if you have any questions, consult with your owner's manual or get a Chilton's or a Haynes. They're fantastic books. So anyway, until next time, this has been Jeff Williams with AskJeffWilliams.com saying, if in doubt, change it out.